It is Luis Palomino, the champ, the double champ, the pound-for-pound great. He got it done again, defended the belt at BKFC 45. You got the decision win over James Lilley. So, Luis, let me just ask you, a few days later, give me your thoughts on the performance, the fight itself.
Well, man, once again, thank you for having me, man. To put it all out there and to be truthful, there's something I always teach my son since he was like 12, 14 years old. I teach him, I tell him, you can't never go wrong with the truth. You know what I mean? And the truth of the matter, people don't know. People don't know the real truth because how do I sound after a fight like that with a very high level bare knuckle boxer? James Lilley is an amazing fighter. 8-0 is not easy to come by in our sport. You know what I mean? He's very good, very smart, very fast, a lot faster than I thought he was. But the truth of the matter, man, is I hurt my right hand before this fight. You understand? Like I fractured my right hand in the last knuckle in my last fight 6 months ago against Tom Schoff. I hit him right in the forehead, and I was in a cask for a month, for about 6 weeks. My hand was fine the entire camp. It was good. And in my very last week of sparring, the difference was since I was getting ready for a southpaw fighter, and everything changed within 3 weeks before the fight to James Lilley. You know what I mean? So everything went to garbage. There's not enough time for me to go now and look for a guy that spars like James Lilley. So I told my trainer, let's do what I do best. I adapt. So let's just find a bunch of different fighters. Long, short, explosive, smart, brute, whatever. And let my training for the next few weeks be, just me adapting to different styles. Because we don't have the time to change everything now. You know what I mean? After 2 months of sparring, we're none but southpaw fighters. So what happened was, in the very last week of training, I was sparring with 3 different guys, 2 minutes each. So I was doing 6 2-minute rounds, high level, explosive. And I threw a power punch with the right hand, and I landed the last 2 knuckles that I fractured. Those little last 2 knuckles, I landed in the elbow. And, I stayed quiet about it. Not even my teammates knew about it. Only my coach, Tigre, and I knew about it. I just stayed quiet. I didn't want nobody talking about it because I didn't want people to repeat it and put it in my head more than it already was. So I just stayed quiet about it. And what made it worse was the week of the fight, when we take the gloves off and we start hitting mitts without gloves, and I'm in the heat of the moment, I'm not feeling the hand bothering me that much, and I throw an uppercut and I land the same exact corner in the damn mitts. So I come into this fight literally on one hand. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? So I literally fought with one hand. Now you tell me, how do I sound saying, "Oh well, I hurt my hand and I beat him with one hand"? How do I sound? I sound like an asshole, man. Right or wrong? Right or wrong?
I mean, you're right, but as you said, you're just telling the truth.
Yeah. So how do I sound after a very high level fight against a very high level boxer that came all the way from England to challenge me? How do I sound? Grab the mic and say, "Oh, well, I hurt my hand last week." It sounds like I'm putting up an excuse for my performance. So instead of being completely honest, I wasn't fully honest, and I said whatever came to my head, and it came out even worse. It was, you know what I mean? And that was, the lesson that I always teach my son. You can't go wrong with the truth. If I just stuck to the truth, I don't think it would have been as bad as the way that it sounded. Like, fans and even the promoter, Dave Feldman, took it like I didn't fight hard enough because I didn't fight against who I wanted to fight. And that's not what I meant. You know what I mean? I was very limited, man. Okay. Here's how I can prove myself, right? Apart from I have a doctor that I saw before the fight. But look at all my previous fights and count how many times I throw my right hand. I trade punches, man. I trade punches with both hands. And now go to my fight and count how many times I threw my hand. I probably threw my hand like 5 to 8 times.
Yeah. Well,
most of the times the right hand were like in the clinch, where I know I can turn the little 2 knuckles in the front. But a throw in a straight right or an uppercut with this hand, I'm done. And then I have no defense for the parry, which was to eliminate his greatest weapon, which is his jab.
Yep. Well, it makes sense, and it's interesting because after the fight, I think a lot of us were going, man, like, did time finally catch up with Luis, right? I mean, he's, you're 42, you've had 50 fights, and as you said, it wasn't your most exciting fight, it wasn't your best performance. I think a lot of us were saying, man, did that day finally come? Is Father Tom finally creeping up around the corner? But you're saying, no, there's a whole different explanation for it.
Yeah, man. Look at me. I never sat down between rounds. In the 5th round, I'm like, man, I can do 5 or 10 more rounds after this. Like, I was in the bad shape of my life. I was ready to, like, throw it all out there. I was looking for a knockout. I have a knockout bonus that I'm going after, both from a sponsor of mine and from the organization. Like, I want to throw it, but I couldn't, man. I was very limited. You know what I mean? And I guess I should have been. That's why you shouldn't apologize to anybody, and you should be honest. Because I ended up saying things that didn't really mean, that came off wrong. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I had to show you that, I respect James Lilley. He's a very high-level fighter. But look what I did with one hand, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, if I come off and say that like right after work, I just sound like an asshole. You know what I mean? I was trying not.
If anybody deserves a little second, I mean, you have the credentials, you paid the dues, you've laid the groundwork. So, I mean, certainly nobody should be questioning your word. But so I guess, where do you go from there, right? Like in your mind, I feel like there's some frustration there. You know what I mean? Is it something that you need to revisit, or I mean, I don't know. Where do you feel right? Because it feels like you feel kind of unsatisfied at the moment.
I'm unsatisfied because I couldn't perform the way that I would like to perform. The only reason I'm unsatisfied. But I mean, if I did that with one hand, yeah, no, bro. It's a unanimous decision. I believe I won 4 out of 5. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe I watched the fight. I saw 4 out of 5, basically on one hand. You know what I mean? I'm not putting him down. He's a very respectful man. I have the utmost respect for James Lilley, but definitely not looking for a rematch. I wasn't excited about the fight. I was excited when I was going to fight Trout because he's a former 2-time WBA world champion. I get excited when I think I'm going to fight Eddie Alvarez, even though he's scared shitless and he does not want to face me. So we have the same story repeating itself over and over again, as where like Chad Mendes signs with us and ducks me for an entire year. And now we have the same thing happening with Eddie Alvarez. I even have inbox messages from both of them avoiding to fight me, literally telling me they don't want to fight me. I don't put it out there, but I have it. And now Eddie Alvarez wants to get stupid and disrespectful now because he's mistaking my kindness for weakness. You know what I mean? We exchanged some words. I can put it out there right now. He literally says, "You and I will never fight for money." Like, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? You mean to tell me that the former champion of Bellator, the former UFC champion, the 2 biggest shows in the world, you went over there to Japan to try to obtain gold in ONE FC, right? Arguably the 3rd biggest MMA show in the world, right? And now I'm gifting you a shot at a title in bare knuckle boxing, a sport that you said that you enjoyed, that you debuted on already, and I'm skipping another line and you don't want the shot. Yeah, that sounds like you scared of me. That sounds like you don't believe you can make it. You know what I mean? And now they interview him because before the fight, I was in the locker room, and they ask him, who you got in this fight? And the dude is there praying to God that I lose the fight. Oh, I got James Lilley. I know people don't want to hear it here because this is his hometown, but I got James Lilley in this fight. He's gonna take him out. He's gonna end the run for Baboon. So then after the fight, I call him out, and the only thing he says is, "That fight was shit." And he, like turns his face and try not to like show his face where the real fear is coming out because he doesn't want to take the fight, man. If the fight's shit and I'm shit, take the fight. Take the fight. Why you don't want to fight me?
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's all I'm wondering. So right now at this point, man, that's all I care about. Give me Mike Perry. Super fight, 170. I'm not 170. I walk around what? 175 fat when I'm like out of shit. You know what I mean? 165, 170. I fluctuate when I'm training. I'm small. You know what I mean? The only thing that interests me right now are Mike Perry, Eddie Alvarez. If somehow they were to sign Jose Aldo or Jeremy Stevens that are boxing out there, and Showtime Pettis that are boxing out there, right? These are all the names. Ashton Trout, former two-time WBA world champion, or somebody, like that, with those type of accolades, right? Or the only other thing is, if the people that are signed, like Mike Perry and Eddie Alvarez, already signed to the organization, don't want to fight me, and we haven't signed other people that they probably won't want to fight me either, because they hide behind the fact that I'm a champion and they need to pick me up fight first. So they use that to not fight me, right? Then I'll give away a belt. A belt. I got teammates that can take that. You know what I mean? And let's meet at 165 then. The only other thing is, there's a 145-pound belt. I'll make the drop if they make my worthwhile. Be the first 3-weight division champion. I'll drop to 145. We can do that too.
Wow. I love it. Nothing but big fights moving forward. I imagine you've already started having the conversations with David Feldman. What's the reception like? Is he saying, I'm going to get you these fights? I'm going to get you these names?
Well, we have a conversation tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to finally touch base, and I'm going to explain to him, I haven't had a conversation with him yet. I can understand his position and how he felt about, the things that I said and how they came off. But like I always taught my son, man, you can't go wrong with the truth. I'm going to let him know what it really is. And if anything, man, think about it, man. I just took out the best man in the organization other than me at 155 pounds with an 8-0 record. Took him out with one hand, basically, man. You know what I mean? Give me my equal. Bring me my equal, man. Or give me somebody that's wide,
I love it. Big fights coming up on the rise. I think they're going to make it happen. You've definitely earned it. I guess the last thing I ask you, Luis, the hand. Do you need some time off? I mean, what are we talking about in terms of maybe to make something like this happen? You need some time away to let this hand heal up before you start thinking about it?
I think within a month I'll be all right. This is one of those accidents that happens in training. Nobody said it better to me personally than Minotauro Nogueira, the former UFC and Pride champion. When I was in Team Nogueira many years ago, and he was the champion, he said one day, whoever makes it to a fight free of injury just didn't train hard enough. You know what I mean? Like, we all show up to fight with something wrong, man. A twisted ankle, a hurt hand, a hurt rib, a bad weight cut. Like, we don't all show up at 100%. Something was that we just stay quiet about it and we perform, and I try to stay quiet about it, but it backfired on me for saying the wrong things. So I had to bring the truth out. I literally fought with one hand, man. But it's a freak accident. My hand was good months ago. I've been sparring. I've been doing great. I had zero arguments, zero complaints until I hit the damn elbow, man. I hit an elbow like with all the power, like boom, right in those little knuckles, And then hitting the mitts, I did it again while it was still fresh. You know what I mean? So it was very limited. What can I do? It happened. I didn't want to just not fight. I haven't fought in 6 months. You know what I mean? Yep. And I'm the main event. So it's not going to be good for the show either. So just next time, say less and stick to the truth, man. That's all.
I love it. Well, you still got the win. I mean, listen, like I said, nobody can question your commitment to the game. I mean, combat sports in general, but this run you've had in BKFC has been incredible. And look, when you can pick up a win on a night that's not your best night, sometimes that's the mark of a champion more than somebody that goes out there and dominates. It's somebody that can deal with adversity and battle through hard times. And so you still got the job done. And as far as I'm concerned, you've earned those big names. So hopefully, whether it's Eddie Alvarez versus Mike Perry versus Jose Aldo, Jeremy Stevens, Anthony Showtime Pettis, hopefully one of those comes together. And as soon as it does, we'll be watching, man.
Awesome, my brother. Thank you so much, man.